Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
Jeff Byers joins us. It may be the off-season, but it's never off-season for wrestling. Sir, welcome. It's always a pleasure.
Likewise, and the coaches will be the first to tell you the so-called regular season is when they have the most downtime they have, which is not to say they have much downtime.
By the way, did your wife just have a birthday?
We had an anniversary. She had anniversary.
Congratulations. What, 3 years?
It is indeed.
Congratulations on 3 years. That's wonderful.
Seems a lot longer to her, I'm sure.
I notice I asked you, not her. All right.
I do indeed.
Well, congratulations. You're great couple, great family.
Thanks.
So Penn State, the Final X events are coming up in Stillwater and New York. And Penn State, between current members and the Penn State Olympic Regional Training Center, they got a lot of qualifiers for this along the way. So let's go with the former Nittany Lions. Jason Nolf and Zane Rutherford are two of them. They were able to get through in Coralville. Yes, that little arena right next to the hotel we stay in. Yep. For those who follow it, they know every nuance of it. But Jeff, what kind of job have they done on this stage for those who haven't seen them in a while?
Yeah, exceptional, really, Steve, on both counts. I mean, Zane obviously has been on the world team before, and we know what he's capable of, and he's capable of beating anybody in the world on a given day. Jason is to me just an intriguing story here, Steve, because he had very limited freestyle opportunities. Well, I shouldn't say opportunities, but he didn't take advantage of the opportunities. Very limited freestyle experience, I should say, coming out of college. Certainly had some. I mean, it wasn't that it was completely foreign to him, but not to the degree that a lot of these guys had. And he's really made some very quick strides and adjustments. And it wasn't just that he won. It was that he won in kind of the dominating fashion we were used to seeing him wrestle folk style throughout his collegiate career at Penn State. And, he has obviously an extremely tough matchup in Final X with Kyle Dake, who handled him last time around. But I was talking to a couple of people, and I'm really curious to see, Steve, just how much I guess but I suspect he's closed the gap. I want to see how much he's closed the gap on, one of the great wrestlers and one of the guys that's really tough to score on. To me, that matchup is just intriguing because, again, Jason just keeps getting better and better and is, I think, just starting to realize his potential in the freestyle world. Jason is all about offense. Kyle Dake, while he certainly has a good offensive repertoire, I mean, he is just darn near impossible to score on when he's on top of his game. So that's, to me, just a really intriguing style matchup there. And Jason's gotten bigger and stronger, and that was certainly what he needed to do to try to compete here with Kyle Dake. But I was impressed with just how easily he made it look in winning the Open.
Yeah. And then, of course, David Taylor was already in. Thomas Gilman and Kyle Snyder as well. But David Taylor is, as usual, is a guy that I think it's fair to say sets a standard for a lot of people, doesn't he?
No question, Steve. And he is a guy that has just taken his game to a whole nother level, and the level he was on was pretty darn good. But, what you saw at the Olympics last year, I would say David Taylor is as good as anybody pound for pound right now in the world. And, his cohort from Iran is certainly right in that conversation as well. And those two are just elite guys. And Zahid Valencia is obviously an outstanding wrestler as well. And I think, we were just talking a little bit before we came on. You kind of forget, I think some people forgot about Zahid just because of the drug issues that he had and the suspension. And then, all of a sudden he's back and wrestling as well as he ever has. And, I think David Taylor would be the favorite over anybody right now But Valencia is probably the one guy that I think, at least athletically, can stay with Taylor. I'm not sure that he can wrestle Taylor's pace, for all 6 minutes. But I guess that's what we'll find out at Final X.
And what about Zane Rutherford? I know I mentioned him in the beginning. We talked more about Jason Nolf, but what about Zane?
Yeah, Steve, Zane, when he is on, and there were some things going on with his personal life that I think kind of disrupted his bid for the Olympics, and
right.
just some internal things where he was putting pressure that we're just not used to seeing him do. But I think they got some things. Well, I know they got some things straightened out there. He's feeling very good. Jordan Oliver, again, that matchup, you can watch those guys, and we have watched them wrestle back and forth over the years. Just both really, really good wrestlers, and, they both are really good at making adjustments, and we've seen that throughout their ongoing series here on the national and international stage. And I think, again, that's one of those matches, as somebody that's followed Zane, I'm favoring Zane going into that, but it certainly is a match up, best 2 of 3 series that could certainly go either way.
I'll set up this question because I was talking to somebody today, and their granddaughter has decided she wants to try out wrestling.
Yep.
And when I was in Coralville in, I think it was February, Jeff, it was right before you went. And the weekend I was there, they had a huge tournament in the arena that these guys wrestled in.
Yep.
Right? And it was boys and girls, and there were a lot of girls there wrestling. What kind of influence does a Jennifer Page Rogers, who's the 6th member of this group, right, can she have on everybody's for the future?
Yeah, I think it's huge, Steve, and I think right now for the sport, I think maybe some of the leaders were a little behind the curve on getting, understanding the importance of the role of women's wrestling and girls wrestling in terms of the long-term viability and sustainability right now of the sport with Title IX and just with everything that is happening now at the collegiate level. And, the good news is we are seeing the numbers grow really exponentially here in Pennsylvania in terms of girls wrestling and women's wrestling, but really throughout the world now, and certainly throughout the United States. And we're getting more opportunities, not a ton yet, but we're getting more opportunities at the collegiate level for scholarship chances for the girls coming out of high school. And, you see a Grace Stem and what she's doing at Bald Eagle area. It is an exciting time, I think, for women's wrestling, and I think for wrestling in general because of that. And I think the crossover and the respect that you're seeing from the men's wrestling side to the women's and the women's wrestling side to the men's is a big deal. And I think it's I do think it gives a better shot here for wrestling kind of surviving whatever the economic future is here in college athletics, because I think there are more and more schools that are taking a long, hard look, and I suspect, I don't know anything for sure, but I think Penn State, certainly is one of the schools that will be looking at least at the possibility of adding women's wrestling here in the relatively near future.
I mean, just walking through the lobby, it was amazing to see how many girls were in that lobby with their parents getting ready to wrestle. I was so impressed by that.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And they're really the top echelon. That the Olympians, Steve, are just a wonderful group of women who really represent themselves in the sport really well. Yes. I had a chance to meet a few of them at the Hall of Fame dinner last year, and they just they couldn't have been nicer, more generous with their time. And again, it's a big deal when you get a David Taylor out there signing autographs. So it's equally a big deal when you have, Helen Marolis or whoever it may be out there signing autographs and, again, representing the sport in a way that gets other people excited about the opportunity to see the personalities.
Nico Megalous went 3-1. Mark Hall went 2-2. Vincenzo Joseph went 3-2, took second. Bo Bartlett went 1-2. Nick Lee was 2-2. But I want to ask you finally about Carter Starocci, who went 3-1 over the past weekend. Your thoughts on for Starocci and maybe Nick Lee, what kind of future they can have, down the road in this?
Yeah, Nick seemed a little off to me, Steve, and I don't have any inside info or anything. I don't know if it was just an off day or if it was sickness, and I'm not looking to make excuses, but he was not wrestling at the finishing off bouts the way we're used to seeing him finish off. And listen, credit to opponents. Maybe it was just a matchup situation, but he just did not look like what we're used to seeing, just in terms of the competitive fire toward the end of the bouts. Steve, both Carter and Vincenzo were really impressive to me with what they were able to accomplish against elite guys. Carter Starocci pushed Chance Marsteller to the brink, and Marsteller just had a spectacular tournament and was phenomenal. And both of those guys, I think, have, going back to Lee and Starocci, have very bright futures. I think Carter, Steve, is on a track here to be the next, great wrestler. The guy that is going to be looked at as potentially the face of USA Wrestling. I mean, he has that type of talent, that type of work ethic, and you can just see everything kind of coming together here for him and making the world team. He won't be the starter, but he's going to be able to go out and train, and that is a guy that soaks up everything, likes wrestling the guys that can beat him. I mean, that's where he knows that he can learn the most, and I just think the opportunity that he created for himself here is absolutely huge.
Always a pleasure, Jeff. Thanks so much for your time. It's great to talk wrestling in late May, early June.
Indeed it is. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it.
Jeff Byers. All right, so I wanted to get to the story that